Welcome, ghouls, demons, and fellow weird ones. Let's drink some moon juice. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to set, I wasn't planning on doing this, but it came up from the other video, so I wanted to just carry on with that, because I thought it's important for me, I guess, in me clearing my own name in a way. I don't know why, just for what it's worth, I guess, for all of the self-advocacy things, because I think it's important. It's my relationship to cannabis, marijuana, and engaging in these products. And why is it important? Well, it's important because it's in our legislation. And so my story, my anecdotal evidence of experience, I feel like is a healthy story for the cannabis community, and so I'm very vocal about it when I'm engaging with people. But I did have this sobriety pact with myself. I was getting really worried about my lungs. There was just an awareness of how much strain I have been putting on them, not just smoking, leads of a variety of different things. All the talking, it was all this throat chakra stuff, and I really want to take care of myself, and I was like, I need to be honest if this is something that's self-destructive. I need to face my fear about this being self-destructive. I need to face my fear about being wrong with my relationship to this substance. I need to be honest about the substance abuse in my family. I need to be honest about this understanding. Am I enabling myself? Am I making excuses? I didn't want this to be a crutch, and I haven't wanted it to be a crutch. And then when I go on prolonged uses of anything, it's like, hey, I think I need a break. And tolerance breaks are always good. But it's like, okay, is this helping me or is this hurting me? It's like I constantly have these check-ins with myself, and as I was kind of feeling just some strain on my lungs and everything, it just seemed like, hey, maybe just don't smoke, maybe take a break, some edibles, or it's like, how much, what is the consistency, and when and where and why. Again, I think the why is really important. And I think that's important for a lot of people going through sobriety things, is you have to be able to ask yourself why. And I'm not always a big advocate for abstinence. I think that abstinence is a suppression of the shadow, and I think that that's more restrictive in an unhealthy way. I do think some people might come to the conclusion that they just have to stay away from it, and that's a different thing than preaching or establishing a healing path as sobriety. I think it's understanding and creating a relationship with your relationship to the substance. And so I have check-ins like this all the time. I think that there was a time in my life where it was becoming a huge crutch, and I think it manifested in having to be drug tested when I had to go through my court case. And for those of you who don't know about that, that's a whole other video. But I had to be drug tested, and it was completely undrug related, and I was offended that they would expect me to have to pay all this money for drug testing for a non-drug related offense. So why are you it was just so the court could get money. Is a whole fucking thing. It was very irritating, but I manifested a whole year of sobriety, and it was like, no one thought I could do it. I know people in my family didn't think I could do it, because here's the thing, they thought I was doing drugs well before I did drugs. I used to be a huge team straight edge, and then because I was having a really weird relationship with alcohol, related to what I saw in my childhood, with my mother and her relationship to alcohol, my grandpa's relationship to alcohol, and just a variety of people around me, the kids, it was just a thing that people did, and especially in my small town. You went out in the hills and you drank. You partied. You went to some random person's house in the middle of nowhere and drank alcohol, and a lot of things happened. I really struggled with that, and so then I just was like, I don't really want to do anything. That was one of the healthy things that one of my situationships. So the one that I was talking about, the man who like drained me the most, my ultimate nemesis as far as situationships and relationships and all this stuff goes. I had a moment where I was like, oh, I thought it was really cool that these guys in hardcore in this band, they were like Team Straight Edge. He was a musician, and he explained that to me, and I thought that was really cool. And I was like I had toyed with that, but it just didn't seem like something that was possible, because it seemed like alcohol was just a part of the culture, not to excuse it, but it's the societal influence. And it's just like, you tell people you don't want to drink, and all the pressure you feel, like the peer pressure being real, and then it's like, okay, well then you think like, oh well, I'm not like these people, I'm not like this person, I can enjoy it, and then you have fun, but then things go wrong, and then it's like, oh see, I told you so. It's that negative reflection and self-talk, and sometimes those are really honest like conversations that you need to have. Or realizing it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because you were not disciplined or respectful within your relationship with that substance, which I think is something huge that parents and adults, the elders, should be teaching children. I think the way especially Americans handle alcohol, and this goes into cannabis and drugs and everything, is fucked up. I think it's incredibly fucked up, and I think that's why we have such a, is epidemic? I can't remember which correct phrasing. It's not a pandemic, epidemic, of substance abuse. That you don't, from what I've heard and understood, you don't quite see in other countries. So Americans definitely have some issues, but that doesn't mean there aren't issues in other countries. I think there is like an alcohol problem that is global. I think a lot of problems are more synonymous than people think. I think other countries can be good at playing face, or just because it's the majority, they forget about the people who are still struggling with it. It's like, no, there's still a problem here. It's just not as big. Doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. I would argue that there could be a potential that the problem will never cease to exist, but that's why you have people who genuinely care to mitigate the problem, so it doesn't blow up and become catastrophic, which I feel like in America it's levels of catastrophic, because it's unchecked power, and corrupted power. It's abuse of power. And so I think that there needs to be a huge shift in all of these things, and I think it starts within like our laws and freedoms. But the reason people, especially, and you see it in other countries where they have stricter laws, people think that you have to we'll make it illegal, and that's how you do it, and very authoritarian. Not true. You need to help change. It's more liberal in this sense that you need to teach and direct the relationship in a level of truth. You have to be transparent about the substance, and it's the law of knowledge. The people have the right to know, and withholding knowledge from anyone is corruption. It's unethical. It's that can't exist. That is breaking universal agreements that I don't fully understand the word to express what this is. It's not necessarily coming to me, or maybe I don't know it, maybe it's not my vocabulary, I don't know this sensation. But this is a breach of contracts to the extreme, with how humanity is treating itself through this lack of education and truth and knowledge and all of the above. So this propaganda, the agendas on this mistrust, they created an intentional mistrust. And if you know, you know. But if you don't know, then you don't know. And if you think you know, but you're not in the group, then you'll never know. They will paint you to be insane. And so I was saying in my other video, my only goal is truth. And the only thing that I can trust is my experience, but that doesn't mean I don't ignore other people's experiences and I don't take it into consideration. And then scientific studies, etc., etc. So you know, you go for, especially in the cannabis world, you have this realm of people who tell you, like, no, don't listen to anybody. The truth is that it's completely harmless. And the truth is nothing is completely harmless. Things can be mostly harmless. There's a spectrum of everything, but ultimately there's trade-offs to everything. And my relationship and journey and experience with cannabis has been a huge lesson of that. And I think that there is a healthy way of engaging in every substance, except maybe, I don't know, and I really don't think meth is good in any capacity, but then, you know, what is it, Ritalin or whatever? It's not adrenaline, what the fuck is it? Adderall, thank you. Adderall is just legal meth. So, you know, I think it's a whole thing, right? I personally you pick and choose your poison. But anyway, I struggled with defining and organizing my boundaries around my usage, and I think that problem-solving journey that's where I give myself a lot of grace for being a hypocrite, but that's also where I hate being a hypocrite. But I think there's a spectrum of hypocrisy that we all have to endure, that humiliation of being wrong in the grand scheme of things. But it's not even being wrong, it's just shifting. It's like, hey, at this moment in time, this is what I needed, and this is what it was. However, that has obviously changed now. It's become something else. So I can simultaneously admit that this was a healthy decision and I wasn't wrong. However, I've lost control of that by not checks and balances, and that's where I think meditation and all of those things are important. And so I started to notice just coughing, like normal, regular things. I could have just honestly had like a bit of a cold. There's theoretical belief that it is like a throat chakra, like clearing. It depends on where you want to land on your belief system, and I like to have an anchor and grounded reality that I need to take better care of my body and incorporate more like herbal medicine, take breaks. I need to shift my boundary here, because at a time and a place it was necessary to do to this capacity. However, that's not true anymore, and I need to shift my boundaries. But the answer to that, hi Hazel, it's not always sobriety is like my conclusion, and that's something, by setting that sobriety goal and setting myself up for failure, I did what I put myself in this mindset of what I theorized to fail. And here's the thing, so it's again, self-fulfilling prophecy. You set yourself up to fail because I wanted to see if I would fail. And here's what shifted me in failing is, I'm sorry, I don't know if I like bridged that properly, because it's a perspective, right? Like, so it's I'm maintaining multiple perspectives at once and trying to hold the hypocrisies and all the different dots. So you set this goal and you don't want to set it up to fail, but you know your intuition. That's the thing. I knew I was going to fail, so why would I pressure myself into that goal instead of making a more realistic goal? That's what I'm trying to get at. That's like the best. So it was like, because like this would be perfect. Why would that be perfect? Why would me being sober be perfect right now? When I quit my job is gone. I no longer have my job. I've let go from my job. I'm going through this change. I'm going through this transformation. I am doing all of this. Why would now be the time to be sober? It's like, well, because people are going to take me seriously, and I don't think people are going to take me seriously if I am just some stoner spiritual girly. I desperately, I will say desperately, hopelessly, within my entire being, wants to be perceived as someone who is intelligent. I'm tired of not feeling smart. Because like here's the thing: if I'm dumb, I'm dumb. But I really don't think that I am. I would like people to give me more credit. And I'm always met with, well, you don't make it easy on people, and I call it the Elle Woods syndrome. But I'm like, but I speak for myself. Like, fucking look at what I do. Listen to me talk. Like, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. And then, you know, my family has a hard time with marijuana use, and they think I've lost my mind. There's a lot of reefer madness propaganda in that household. I did grow up very Christian conservative, so it's in the culture, and that's what I'm talking about. That's like really unhealthy and way too judgmental, because like you fell for a lie. I'm trying to tell you, like, hey, like that's not quite true. I'm not saying that there isn't a trade-off, but you can't judge me when you're doing all this alcohol stuff and justifying it because it's normalized. But it's like, well, cigarettes were normalized for so long, and they're kind of denormalized, but they're still not denormalized. We changed the boundary within it, and that's the whole other thing. But you see how all of this stuff gets corrupted, and it's because people don't have good check-ins with themselves to say, like, hey, how do we make this a healthy relationship? And for each individual, that's going to look different, but on a collective scale, there are things we can collectively do that will assist in individuals having healthy relationships with substances. And I have explored that. That's been part of the use. I started cannabis to help with my PTSD and help me sleep and my anxiety and all of these things that I was trying to manage by myself, and I realized I couldn't. So for me, it's a big ego trip, death, etc., and having to admit, like, I need help. But I don't want it to be a crutch, because I am self-medicating, but I'm trying to be honest about it. And so I wanted to do a sobriety thing. Because too much cannabis use suppresses your dreams. There's a lot of benefits to being sober and advancing your skills without plant medicine or other herbal medicines. But there's a difference. If you're going through a state of healing and you're utilizing plant medicine, you have to follow the cycle. So my timing, it's more lessons of like jumping the gun, not completing a cycle, trying to jump too far ahead instead of just going through the process. And so where I fail is there's a few intense emotions, and that I was having through my menstrual cycle at this like Halloween season, which was there's a lot of there's a whole everything within what that represented. And so just a few hits just kind of helped me, like, you know, I had a meltdown over, I was completely dysregulated, and it was helping me regulate, it's helping me ground. And I think that not everyone understands the grounding energy that can come from cannabis because of the high intense anxiety. For me, it makes me really aware of my emotions that were already there, which is why I got to the point, like with cannabis or marijuana, it's like, okay, I feel the dysregulation happening. I'm not smoking to avoid the dysregulation. I am smoking to process the dysregulation and ground into it, because then I can express it with my ego down, my inhibitions lowered, my mask has fallen. I've broken through those chains of being put together and playing face and, you know, I guess being Miss Perfect, and then I just kind of become the dopey stoner or whatever. But then the emotions are there, and it's like, no, this is like actually how I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm afraid, I'm excited and happy and thrilled, but like, and I want to create, and there's all of this, but I'm kind of stuck in what I create. Like, there's so many different phases of feelings, and that's why every time you smoke, things are different, because you potentially feel different every day or whatever. But once I came into an awareness of, oh, okay, these are my emotions, because I had an issue with dissociation. through the PTSD and thing that I endured. And so I was really desensitized to a lot of things. I again, the more shadow aspect, I buried everything. So to me, cannabis and psilocybin and LSD and DMT and all of the above has helped break that. And so that kind of goes into like other realms that like layers. Okay, but I'm talking very specifically about cannabis because I was like, I'm not going to do anything. I want to go through a cycle without anything, because I've gone through cycles with, you know, mushrooms, with acid, with cannabis, with nothing. I've gone through a variety of cycles, and so I was like, I think I'm ready for another sober cycle. But I have to finish out this cycle that I'm in, which is being more, really trying to put more of my content out there, recording more, figuring out what stories to tell, sitting down and telling the story, being open to being vulnerable and recording all of this. And the embarrassment that comes with it, like the imperfections that come with it, like it's a learning process, and weed has helped me just lower the perfectionist princess, and I can just kind of ease into my train of thoughts. And sometimes it's scattered, but here's the thing, it's just as scattered sober. I've come into an understanding that I don't change. I don't change. I am the consistent variable. It's my intention but I don't change. Regardless of how or when, if I'm sober or high, I'm Sarah. This is me, and I can just be me easier because I don't have that armor up that sober Sarah has. And so it's like, okay, well, I want to break that chain, and I need to do so by being in a sober state. It's like, okay, but you have, baby steps. It's like, again, I was trying to fly before I crawled. And so, because I tried recording a few videos, and it was really hard, because like usually it's fun for me. I like the ritual of it. Take a few hits, come in, light the candles, set everything up, you know, get the puppies comfy. I have the routine, I have the ritual, and it's fun and it's joyous. And then I just get on here and I yap, and it's just like I'm not busy thinking about all the other things. I feel like it helps me focus, but I've been told by a few people that they feel like I'm more scattered than ever, and I was like, well, I think I'm just more confident in sharing my thoughts, and I don't think you've ever actually listened to me. And I think it's also a scapegoat. It's also another thing to just make me feel bad about myself. There's so much other layers to that, but if it wasn't for that reflection coming at me, I wouldn't have maybe paused and asked myself, like, well, how do you actually feel about it? And it's like, well, this is how I feel about my relationship to these substances. I don't really like how alcohol makes me feel. I do love wine. Like, I don't necessarily like the flavor, I like how wine makes me feel. Wine can be difficult, but I love the essence of it, and I love the loose feeling of it. Hate how it makes me feel the next day, and it has never made me feel good. But was that lesson? Special occasions, and I plan ahead to have a veggie day, which is what I did, which is what I do. And you learn through that experience, and there's nothing wrong with failing and learning on how to perfect your relationship with a substance, with a spouse, with a business, with anything. You have the time to sort that out, even though it kind of doesn't seem like it. Sorry, I need water. So, anyway, I think in our culture, we just kind of need to shift it. And that's like what as I was meditating, soberly meditating into my relationship with this, and then, meditating in a high state of consciousness, and like weighing it both out, and like reflecting on things. It's like, okay, this is the only thing is it makes me be me easier. Because I can be me when I feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, this is a grounding thing that helps me feel safe. Especially when like my husband's not here to kind of He's another grounding element. He makes me feel safe. Like, there's so many different things that I have that make me feel safe. And so why would I have to shame myself out of this relationship that's healthy for me just because someone wants to try to convince me it's not? And I feel like there's a lot of stigma against a lot of this research, but I also think it's because people do abuse it. But just because other people have abused their free will or their relationship doesn't mean that other people are. You can't punish someone for what someone else did. I can't punish myself for the sins of my elders, of my ancestors. Yeah, there's generational curses, right? And if you're repeating those cycles, but it's understanding that awareness, and understanding when there is the necessity of punishment. But you can't, it's kind of like the revenge cycles that you see in war. Places happening kind of in our modern time. Like, it just goes back and forth every time, over and over again. And it's just never ending, when the truth is, like, break the cycle. Don't fight the war. Figure something else out. Make a different choice. And it's like, well, they keep bombing us. We have to defend ourselves. It's like, how do you get them to stop? When you chose to stop, how do you get the other side to choose to stop? And that's a difficult thing. But anyway, vice versa. The whole point is you can only control yourself. You can't control other people. And so you can't control other people's relationships with substance, and therefore the legislation is imprisonment and punishment for those who are reckless with their free will. And therefore, like, that's their karma, their consequences. You can't legislate, you can't baby people. You can't coddle society. You have to let people, like, there needs to be nurturing support. It's a balance. And my main point is that we're off balance. There's a different way to do it. We're not doing it the right way, I guess would be my explanation within it. And so, with all of that, if something helps you genuinely, like, as I failed for almost 2 hours, I tried, and I don't really start, when I smoke, I don't start over videos. I feel like I roll right through them. They're a little chaotic, but it's me. It's just like you would be hanging out with me, and that's what I like about them. Is it's not curated, it's not polished. It's just, I like just relaxing and chilling and just like vibing, you know. Life's a party, if you ask me. And that's kind of how I want to engage in talking about some of these, like, I guess, kind of serious topics at the same time. But like, I want to express this stuff in a non-threatening way. But I feel like when I'm sober, I'm really afraid. There's a lot of, like, I guess OCD thoughts, maybe. I'm not diagnosed professionally. I don't want to self-diagnose in a disrespectful way, but it's just constant, like, what if, or like control, where marijuana just helps me, like, surrender to that control while also remaining grounded. And I think that that's a really beautiful relationship, and I don't think that I need to protect myself from something that is healthy. However, I need to maintain the healthiness of the relationship through my own personal boundaries, about my controlling myself, because the weed's not in control of you. These substances aren't in control of you. It's you. It's all you. And yes, it is, like, the physiological response. Yes, so if you need that physiological response, so if you need to wean yourself off of something, which could also be a thing, if I do want to be sober, which might be something that I deal with. I haven't decided how I feel about it, because my main thing is I don't want to limit life. You don't want to limit joy. And if it's healthy and positive and joyous, and I'm creating and doing all these good, beautiful things, why do I need to cut myself off from that and prove that I can do it without it? Because it's like, well, I can. It's just I'm doing it in a different way. And you know, because here's the thing, I'm not always high when I create. I'm not always high. Most of the time, I'm not high when I write. My writing's pretty sober. It's first thing in the morning, but sometimes it's high. It depends, you know. It's interesting where the urge for the need comes from. And sometimes I think that choosing that support is the healthiest thing that you can do for yourself, regardless of the guilt and shame that may come from, like, well, hey, you know, like, I need to be really tight with my money and this isn't like a necessity. It isn't a necessity, right? It becomes this, like, what's the trade-off here? Do I sacrifice this $30 so that way I can get through these videos, so that way I can put them online, so I can be vulnerable and so I can express myself, and then just try again next time? Again, I tried this sober before. I took a few deep breaths. Like, I did delete the videos, but they're in my recover folder, so I could potentially even show people that process, because I have the recording. I don't mind showing people my failures. It's when the failures get, like, attacked, and it's like, okay, like, okay, maybe I didn't say it in the best way, but I still, like, the core, the intention of what I was saying is still the same, but, like, you're mad at me for misspeaking. You're like, there's no grace. It's complete malicious mockery. So anyway, you can just see a difference. You see the difference in the confidence. You see the difference in just the relaxed state. And so I want to be able to get myself into a place where I can do anything and everything sober and feel, but I think there's nothing wrong with having training wheels. And I think that that's kind of like my relationship to cannabis, but you don't want to make it a crutch. And so that is where the shift of relationship comes, and that's where you can, I would say, like, move the goalposts. But, you know, it's just like when you're bowling, if you have, like, the bumpers, like, if depending on what phase you're in, you might need certain tools, and that is okay. So there's no need to have any guilt or shame, but you just have to be honest with yourself about it, and that is the hardest part. Is something that may have been working for a while is no longer working, and instead of changing and evolving, you hold on to it. And so that can also be, that's the repetition of, like, not being open-minded to something else helping. It's like, well, no, it's my granddaddy said that alcohol is what cures emotion, so I'm using alcohol. It's like, well, hey, no, like, maybe there's all these other different things, and find a balance of everything that works for you. And if it is a Western medicine pharmaceutical, like, I'm not up to judging anyone. I just think that there needs to be a balance of education and understanding that different people need different things for different reasons at different times. And there should be a judgment-free zone for how someone is needing to ultimately survive or get through what they're going through. I think when you take mushrooms, you kind of understand that understanding of a trip. Like, you go through that trip for a reason, good, bad, fun, or otherwise, especially if you're paying attention. So if you are a spiritual person, if you are into healing, whether it is, like, more psychological based or any of the above, I think, like, you have this understanding of journeys and cycles, and you can't, you have to finish the journey. You have to finish the cycle. You have to close it out. You can't abandon ship without finishing. You'll never move on until you finish it out, close it out, whatever. So to not be a dead horse, that is just kind of like how I feel about it. So I think, like, these things need to be taken into consideration when it comes to how people are voting and handling all of this. So I don't necessarily vote. I don't think that anyone is worth voting for. Because I don't think that, I don't trust people to follow through on their empty promises. I think there's a whole other realm of things within that. But I do think that advocating for these principles, philosophies, legislations is important. And I know that there's a lot going on in Tennessee. I know, like, just all over the state or just in the world with drugs, and it's a weird world out there. But as a spiritual person who engages in plant medicine and all of the above, I think it's important to have the awareness of your relationship and to not get lost in the sauce, because you don't want to be like any of these cult leaders you see documentaries about, but you also can't fall for the propaganda, and you have to free yourself from not just the propaganda, but the voices and the fears of other people who don't have the courage to take the risk to experience it for themselves. And that is okay. That doesn't mean everyone has to try everything. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, that's totally fine. I just like to encourage people to think about why you're not engaging or trying or open-minded. Like, it's mainly for the people who want to vote against it or want to make it illegal, or for the people who think it's completely useless. You know, again, they just want more accuracy and people to execute their free will. I think that is important. Freedom and individuality is significant, especially at this time. But again, because I'm thinking about Pluto and Aquarius. But again, we have to also be aware of the shadow element of hyper individualism, which we are also noticing. And so again, everything is a balance. How does the collective and the individual merge together? And that is what I am philosophizing, prophesizing, messaging, all of the things. So anyway, that was my little rant on mainly cannabis, but legislation within substances, and also healing substance abuse and recognizing patterns, keeping yourself disciplined, and being honest about when you are enabling yourself. I had to come to the conclusion that I don't feel like I'm enabling myself. It was rooted in a fear of, I didn't want to enable myself in the same way that I feel like people of my past have enabled themselves. I don't want to have that same association. I don't want to be perceived in that same way. And there are times where I feel judged that way, and sometimes I judge myself that way. And so it's having to heal that relationship and that projection into a truth of what stance and relationship I am living within. What is my present reality, not a reality of my past and my wounding? And then also, how do I implement not necessarily safety nets, but in a way safety nets, but boundaries to maintain the healthy relationship? How do I fulfill this need in a way that is healthy, and how do I continue to evolve and adapt, and what is my ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to be able to be regulated enough to not need anything except the natural nutrients you get from water and food. But that's also like lessons of fasting and moderation, which would also be a left-hand path disciplinary perspective. So I need to wrap this up. So thanks for using some moon juice, and that is my spiel on all of those topics. Take care. Hey, mommy's so crazy.